Today, the Seattle police chief warns of rapes and robberies happening in the CHAZ area, but the mayor says it's just a block party. Don't worry. Also, the Denver School Board unanimously votes to pull DPD officers out of schools, and liberal celebrities white-splain about racism. We've got a lot coming up on this Friday, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Happy Friday. Whew, it's been a week. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by Stu Bergier once again, BlazeTV host of Stu Does America, 2 days in a row.
I know. And then Stu does Colin Kaepernick tonight. I'm very excited about this one.
Oh, I bet you are.
I am.
Oh my, I cannot wait to hear how far Stu goes. It's funny, I almost included that on the show today. Who was it? Terrell Owens?
Oh, yeah.
Said that Colin Kaepernick is owed an apology, and I was like, God, that has Stu written all over it. So everyone will have to make sure to subscribe to Stu Does America on YouTube and be on the lookout for Stu Does Colin Kaepernick. We are also joined by Tim Young of the Washington Times. Thanks for being back.
I got this from a thrift store the other day, and I didn't realize how prominent the shoulder pads are. Do I look very masculine with this on?
You look something. You look something, Tim. Also joined by BlazeTV contributor Eric July, who has given me an excuse to wear a baseball cap. So thank you, Eric, for being on the show. All right, so Seattle, we've covered what's going on in, well, I'm sorry. It's not going on in Seattle. It's going on in CHAZ because, as we know, this is not Seattle anymore. This is its own territory. CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So the police chief of Seattle went on a press conference and warned that there are a lot of rapes and robberies going on in this CHAZ area, and the police officers just wanting to do the right thing. They can't get to all these crimes that are happening. Here is a little bit of what that sounded like.
Our 911 response times have tripled in the area. They've gone from just over 5 minutes to about 18 minutes. Rapes, robberies, and all sorts of violent acts have been occurring in the area that we're not able to get to. So it is not right for us not to be able to deploy our officers here.
Chief Best spoke with protesters several times, and she and command staff evaluated the building and found someone did breach the facility.
There is some damage, and it clearly is a mess around here.
But that was contrary to what Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan said. Durkan said this takeover, this CHAZ takeover, it's just a block party. All right, it's just people hanging out, having fun. Here's what she had to say.
So the Capitol Hill area is, in fact, some of my family's up there right now. I think it has been described by the president and others as what it is not. It is not a armed Antifa militia no-go zone. It is a number of people are there. We've had ongoing communications with them, with the business, with the residents, and we will make sure that we find some way for people to continue to protest peacefully while also getting ingress and egress. We've had blocks of Seattle and Capitol Hill shut down every summer for everything from block party to Pride. This is really not that much of an operational challenge, but we want to make sure that the businesses and residents feel safe, and we'll continue to move that forward.
I personally appreciated her use of the SAT words ingress and egress. Still,
very nice.
But a lot of differing opinions here coming from the same city officials. The Seattle mayor and the Seattle police chief, they're living in the same place, and yet we're hearing two totally different things coming from them.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was very descriptive there. She did say a number of people are there, which is only true of all situations, which is really a good fact. It's funny when you watch these, we do national news and we talk about this stuff all the time. We are always jumping into other people's lives. Like we just jump into, we're in Charlottesville mentally for a couple weeks, and then we're in New Orleans, and then it's always going on. And now we're jumping into the Seattle thing, and there's always someone in there that kind of connects with you. And this police chief, just totally connects with me. I mean, her statement that we played a statement on radio today, you could just tell she's just distraught by this. I mean, she's talking to her own officers and apologizing to her officers and saying it wasn't me. I didn't want this to happen. I'm sorry for having you stand out there for 2 weeks, getting things thrown at you, being insulted, being hurt to try to protect this area, and then we just wind up pulling out anyway. she's seeing what this is doing to this community, and she's done a great job, I think, communicating how bizarre of a situation this is. It's not a healthy situation for the people inside, the people outside, the businesses that are trying to operate in this environment. I mean, look, police have done a lot of things that over the years that no one likes, and they're not perfect, just like any other group. But I would say that like this approach of just kind of like giving up and walking away and seeing what happens is not one that we should be replicating, in my view, around the country.
Yeah. Well, so what do you mean by that? So what do you think? I mean, what should we do?
Well, certainly not leave the area. I mean, like, I think there was a real line drawn and crossed in Minneapolis because it's, look, the rioting, the burning down buildings, all the things, the bad things that happened. I know you were in the middle of all this. It was really ugly. Under no circumstances can you let rioters take over a police precinct.
Right.
Like that is like, it's so far over the line. It's like, I can't go 45 and a 40 without getting a ticket. And these people are taking over police precincts?
But I mean, once the local officials have decided, okay, guys, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, the police can't do anything.
Right, but so does the federal government step in? I mean, where's the flexibility there if your own city officials won't protect you?
Yeah.
Who do you turn to?
It's such an unforeseen situation, right? I mean, like we've seen some of this, like in LA back in the day, there was some of this with Skid Row and such. The federal government doesn't have much of a role here, and frankly, in my opinion, and Trump has talked about that. There are probably some circumstances, it's happened a couple of times, but I'm very nervous about saying, hey, military, come on into our cities. Not a great idea. This is something that should be controlled, whether it's the state or somebody needs to step in here. I think what they're doing now is just hoping it works itself out. I legitimately think that is their plan. If they stand there for a while, maybe they can give them, people will get tired of sitting out there, and eventually the crowds will disperse enough that they can move back in. But it's just a terrible idea to just retreat. Right. Property rights are really important in this country. These businesses that are around there, I would argue threatened. We have warlords now apparently roaming the
territory.
One warlord. Just one. He's the only one. And you know what? He's the only one we need. Raz for CHAZ 2020. It's not going to make. I need a T-shirt. But it's not a healthy. It's not civilization, right? Yeah. And I think at some point the lure of the smelly Lollapalooza sort of venue, which is basically what it is. It's not a catastrophe yet. It's just a really bad precedent to set. And basically what you're telling people like Antifa and all these other groups is, do what you want. If you're aggressive enough, you'll get it. And that is not a good message to be sending, I don't think.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
I have a lot of them. Where do I begin? Number one, don't confuse it with AutoZone. They're a fantastic place, even though they don't sponsor me.
I think that they also got burned.
Yeah, we started with burning an AutoZone, and now we're going to destroy another one.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. No. So when you talk about rapes and murders and things that happen in this area, remember Occupy Wall Street years ago? I actually do a bit on this because it was so ridiculous. In Baltimore, there were about 30 people encamped just outside of Harbor Place, which is the main touristy area there. And there was a rapist among them. And in order to deal with this, they talked about it, they had these meetings about it, and finally, after about 29 days, they put a pamphlet out that said, hey, don't rape people.
Oh, thank God.
After I'm sure everyone had been raped. And then they finally called the police and they broke up the whole thing. But you think about how ridiculous this is. The warlord doesn't care about this type of crime. It doesn't, deal with him. I don't know if he has a tiger yet or not, like that dude on Walking Dead. He needs a tiger. But this has gone totally off the rails. And what blows my mind is that Governor Inslee said that he had no idea that it was going on.
Right, yeah.
And then
we played that yesterday.
Both he and the mayor blaming Donald Trump somehow for this. This is just lunacy at this point. And I can't imagine anybody who lives in Seattle or in that area in particular voting Democrat after this. For some reason, the Democrats think the riots help them. They think that letting these crazy Antifa people go crazy helped them. They're betraying their own people. And I think this all comes out in the wash in November.
Yeah. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, this is an interesting situation for me to watch.
I'm sure it is.
The
libertarian
libertarian right at the table. But first of all, because I did get to say this because I wasn't on the show earlier this week, they're hypocrites. They have signs and such, basically saying capitalism is all bad. Property rights, is something that these communists don't actually tend to. And the first thing that they did was build these property lines when they first got there. So they're raging hypocrites. I just had to get that out of the way. But what we're seeing right now is a folks are in a difficult, let's say, situation here, where the cops are being demonized by everybody, essentially. So what's happened is that any sort of reaction, no matter if it's out of them protecting themselves or trying to protect other people for that matter, any sort of reaction is going to be frowned upon. Mm-hmm. So they've decided in a lot of different areas that we're just not going to do anything. Now, the issue with this, and this is why I said that the whole defund the police thing was a joke. Really what it is, it's a money laundering. It's a front for money laundering. Let's call it what it is. Mm-hmm. But the issue is, if you don't lay the foundation, you've corrected nothing. It'd be one thing, and I'm a libertarian, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, okay? It'd be one thing if they were like, we're going to defund the police. We're also abolishing would be these gun restrictions, these laws that are in areas like that in Seattle, which don't allow people to protect themselves, especially with deadly force. And get rid of those and allow people to sort of marketize whatever it is. I'm not talking about people just illegitimately claiming land to be theirs. I'm talking about people voluntarily coming up with means of protection and so forth. Basically what they've done is basically built another state, which is not libertarian by any means, because what they're doing is they go and it's funny, they talk about extorting business. This was actually a kick out of me when I heard that one of the police officers was saying that was what they was doing. I was like, well, that's what y'all do. But nonetheless, that's what it is. It's extortion. If you go by and say, hey, we're going to be holding it down in this area, we need your money. It's
right.
All right, it's dust. But nonetheless, that's what it is. So it's a difficult situation, and it's because we're so narrow-minded in terms of what we try to attack when these catchphrases and such come about. This is why I was grilling the Republicans earlier this week, because I felt like this was an opportunity to be on the attack, to start talking about defunding other things, to start talking about abolition of these gun laws and so forth that make it nearly impossible in certain areas for people to be able to defend themselves. But they didn't. They just stood by, and most of the time they're just sitting here on the defense, and it's so frustrating because there's an opportunity. So you're right, Stu, in that this is a very difficult situation on no matter what side that you look at it from, and I'm interested to see more so how this ends. I mean, it's funny that these guys are asking for food and stuff like that. I mean, it's going to be a failed communist
state.
Soy
products in particular.
Yeah, that's true. It's going to be another failed communist state, it looks like, here. But on a serious note, there's an issue with extorting businesses that I have. This goes all back to the fact that these guys, for whatever reason, think that it's a free-for-all. And this is what I've been talking about this since all of this stuff popped off. It's like, if you keep allowing people to treat it like it's a free-for-all, they can do whatever they want without any sort of consequence. This type of stuff is going to happen. The rioting is going to happen and looting is going to happen because you basically greenlit everything that they can do. And the blue check marks, the politicians that are on their side, that are using them as useful idiots, celebrities are all basically saying what they're doing is okay when it's not.
Yeah. Can you elaborate for a minute on the defunding the police being a money laundering scheme?
Well, the reason,
we haven't really talked about
yeah,
that.
right. So it absolutely is a money laundering. Yeah. It's a front. So what they've talked about, and I actually went in depth because that excites me. When I hear defund anything, I'm like, all right, let's see what this is all about. But then I look into it and I see what people are, that are advocating for this, the people that are on the streets, what they're talking about, and all they're talking about is rerouting the funds to other sort of forms of welfare statism and so forth. Like one dude even said Planned Parenthood. Like, I guess if you're got breaks in your house, you're gonna call Planned Parenthood. I don't know.
Abort the burglar! Abort them!
Exactly. So, but no, it's basically a shakedown, right? It's like, okay, we want to take this money, but we don't want to allow you to keep it. It's not like they want to get rid of the taxation that goes to this, so people can keep their own funds. They just want to take it and reroute it to these things, to these weirdos with worthless liberal arts degrees and stuff like that, social workers and so forth, so they can feel like they're useful and they're doing something. But it's an absolute money laundering scheme. It's not a legitimate defunding of anything.
Yeah, I love the explanation of that.
It's amazing. Look, there's a conversation like in a real like intellectual libertarian sense of like what the role of the police should be, how should we handle those things, and those are really interesting conversations. That's not what this is, right? This is a situation where they're talking about getting rid of the police. Remember, just not that long ago, there was a story. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it wound up being this idea that Imagine if we had libertarian firefighters where they would only show up if you subscribe to their service and they would just let houses burn. And every liberal on the planet was against it. They thought it was the worst idea in the universe. Now all of a sudden here we are. And it's like there's a world, I mean, in some rural areas, there's a world where like police are not particularly present. Like, you know, it's too spread out. People have weapons of their own. They defend themselves. It's not the most insane thing in the world to talk about. But like it's not even close to what it's not honest.
That's not what they want.
Yeah, they want more money to their causes. They think they're using, as they do after every mass shooting, after every other tragedy, they're using the tragedy, never let a crisis go to waste, to grab power for things they've been trying to get forever. It's completely disingenuous, and you know, the people of Seattle are the ones suffering for it right now, but I would not be surprised if we're next, and everybody else that's in the audience.
So you're telling me they're hypocritical and disingenuous, that they have AR-15 guarded, hard-guarded borders that require ID checks to get in?
That's true.
It's
I saw them carrying the fences, and I'm like, I thought you guys told us that we weren't supposed to have these.
It's like they're just adopting the Trump agenda. Like, they are.
Build the wall.
Yeah, they built the wall. That's true. They were effective.
All right, we've got more coming up on this next. First, we want to thank our sponsor this segment, Rough Greens. If you are a dog owner, if you're a dog parent, I know I get flack every time I say dog parent because they're like, that's not anything like having kids. I know, okay, but people love their dogs and they want the best for their dogs. And a lot of people are like money on this dry dog food that you're buying, and you're looking and you're like, these have the best ingredients. I want the best for my dog, and you're spending way too much money on it. And then come to find out, if it's dry dog food, they've already sterilized it to give it a long shelf life, and they've killed all of the good things in it that you're supposed to be giving your dog. So yeah, good job, Sarah. Luckily, Rough Greens is where your dogs can get all of that nutrition back into their diet. It's a supplement that you sprinkle on top of their food, so it's not going to replace the dog food, but it brings back all of the vitamins, the minerals, the digestive enzymes, the probiotics, and the antioxidants that are really going to improve your dog's health, give them a long, youthful life. You can give it to your older dogs too if you have older dogs. I know, Stu, you have a very mature
Miles,
dog.
He's very old. You don't have to say he's old.
I didn't want to offend him.
I think 16.
Yeah,
so
he's really, really old.
He kind of just like lays around. It's hard for him to get up. His joints are really bad. We've been giving him this. He loves it. It seems to be improving. I mean, I'm no vet, but he does seem to be really improving. And I know for a fact he freaking loves it. He eats his food right away when this is on there.
And that's how we have a 9-month-old Doberman puppy, and she's like, she just never wants to eat. She only wants to play. This is how I know that she's going to get her actual nutrition in for the day, because she eats it right up as well. So you got to try it. You can go to roughgreens.com/blaze. Take the Rough Greens 14-day challenge. You will see the difference in your dog in 14 days or less. It's only $14.95. By the way, worth it, especially when you're already spending all that money on the dry dog food and it's not really giving them the nutrition that they need to thrive. Roughgreens.com/blaze. That is ruffgreens.com/blaze. I'm going to wrap up what is going on in CHAZ territory, which is formerly known as the Seattle downtown area. The protesters, of course, they were thinking, well, we have this storage of food in the area. Well, the homeless people came and ate all of their food. So it didn't work out well for them. So they thought to themselves, okay, how can we take care of ourselves in addition to, as I think Tim mentioned, asking for all of the soy products and the vegan products. Please don't bring meat into this area. All right. So they decided that they would go ahead and create their own farm and garden. It's a lovely garden, as you can see by this wonderful picture. So it appears that they have just put some topsoil on top of the grass. They did not till it at all. They put the plants just on top of everything.
That's how it works.
There's no holes. It doesn't appear to be holes for these plants. And they are, I'm sure, going to thrive all summer long on this wonderful garden that they planted. I can't.
I love this. It's
You
so
can't even
good.
make it up.
It's like the one piece of joy right now. All the sadness in the world, and we just get to watch these idiots bumble around and run into each other. It's a lot of fun, actually, to watch. I love how we were going over some of their demand lists yesterday, and there's one 10-point list.
Yeah.
And number 6 is no person or group should have any power over another person or group. And like that's kind of like standard operating procedure of what you'd think there. Number 7 was the community will decide on all standards. Well, it's like, what the hell happens when you don't agree with the community? Like you just said, no one has any power over me. How are we going to decide? Yep. Oh, it's unbelievable. Now, I will say Raz has something to say about that, about no power over another. And Raz is going to step in, Raz for CHAZ. He's going to take over, and he'll make everything okay, and eventually you'll get the nice dictatorship these people deserve. But until that actually happens, they're going to struggle with the farming a little bit.
He needs a tiger.
You really are. You're a big fan of Raz.
I'm kind of into the Raz thing. I want to serve in the administration. I want to be on the campaign team. I want to be there. I get to bring a baton and just knock some heads if they don't vote the right way. And then, as soon as we're done with that first election, we never have to have another one. So I think it's going to work out well.
True socialist form. Tim.
After looking at this, I was wondering, with rough greens, is there a way that I can donate rough greens to this community?
I'm not sure that it's recommended for use in adults, but we might need to make an exception for these people because they are going to be
vitamins they need.
They do.
They will need them.
Will be amazing.
That is true. They will need them. Eric, what are your thoughts on this?
Socialist. No, but it shows why these guys, on a serious note, why they are in opposition to a lot of what it's envy, right? And why they're so much against capitalism. But this is the beauty of capitalism, is that folks like, well, I grew up in the country, so I know a little bit of my way around things like that. But if you don't, you can voluntarily trade with someone that does know, you know what I mean? And that's the beauty of capitalism. But these guys tend to be those guys that seem to have like no actual skills.
What?
Useful skills, right? That can make them valuable among society, which is why they are sort of against what exists in some capacity in form of capitalism, and they look at it as this inequality. But that's right there shows that we are not equal in terms of human beings and our output and our productivity and so forth. And they are going to inevitably fail with this sort of approach, but that's communism.
Yeah. What do you think, Eric, of, we did talk about their list of demands that they came out with yesterday. We discussed it. And I mean, obviously, it was just a whole bunch of complete garbage. But I was struck by, I felt pretty racist to me. Some of them that was just like, you got to frequent the black-owned businesses. Oh, by the way, black people can only be taken care of in healthcare by other black people, black doctors.
It just really goes to show how they don't understand economics. On a serious, they don't understand division of labor. They don't understand any of that stuff. And this is why they have no issue of separating everything by way of race and other things and dwelling on that, like as if, all right, if someone can take care of someone, doesn't matter what race, you would find that skill in itself useful for that person. Just because they are now black or now white does not necessarily give them some sort of superpower to be able to take care of other individuals. But the list of demands, most of them, it was a bunch of garbage, but a lot of it is garbage. The whole entire concept of what they're trying to do is very hypocritical. But if anything, I hope people that are seeing this, that think that sort of thing is something cool, they can see it kind of collapse from within, and they're having issues, or more so they need other people that are outside this autonomous zone to assist them in order for them to exist. It is sort of showing you the logical conclusion of what socialism is and what it has been historically, certain among what their type of socialism, which is more communistic form of socialism, which they were interchangeable terms up until recent history for the most part. If you read Marx or anything like that, they used all that stuff interchangeably as far as socialism. But the Marxists, the communists, or at least in some capacity, and it does always fail from within, and this is going to be an inevitable situation, but I hope people that are sympathetic to them see that as like this is not a viable economic approach. It doesn't last long.
So before the break, I asked you if you thought the federal government should get involved. What capacity should they, step in? I know President Trump, Tim, has said that if they don't straighten the situation out, if Seattle does not straighten the situation out, he said we're going to straighten it out, and that they're not going to let Seattle be occupied by anarchists. What do you think of the federal government's role in this, and should Trump step in?
So originally, I thought, yes, the federal government should get involved and wipe this out. Now I think Seattle gets what it gets. And after I've listened to the mayor, after I've listened to the governor, I look at it and I go, nah, you know what? let them take over the whole city. Just let it get to the point that it's so bad. And I feel bad for the people who live there.
I do too.
But I don't.
People voted these
Yes.
yahoos in, right?
You get what you get. And
I'm sure they didn't anticipate all of this happening.
you elected
Also, not
someone
all of
named
them voted
Jenny.
for that.
Right, it's true.
You know.
It's true, exactly.
But you elected someone named Jenny. You know, I mean, what do you expect? Go with Jennifer or go home. Or Jen.
Apparently, Tim has an ex-girlfriend that doesn't get along with anymore named Jenny.
Fair, sure. Yeah, I don't know. I forget her name. But look, they kind of look the same. No, I just look at it and I go, you know what? Wait till the point where Seattle or the state has to call in the federal government.
Yeah.
Let them, again,
Well, it's
I
true
feel bad for the
because
people, but let it burn.
It's true because, I mean, it's hard to say, yeah, Trump, I mean, let's say for a second you thought that the federal government had the power to come in and do this. It's hard to say, yeah, go in and help them. Even to this day, the mayor is saying that this is President Trump's fault.
It's true.
I mean, if I'm the president, I'm like, why would I don't even want, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just going to let the Darwin theory just go ahead.
They don't want him there, so I don't think he should obviously send anybody there to help them. But it'd be another thing if the people within it, and that's what I want to see. You know, I want to see the people that are in this area. I want to see their voices amplified. Are they okay with this? Are they not okay with this? Because I haven't seen a whole lot from them, just more so from the pundits. So I want to hear from them and what their desires are as far as this. Like you said, maybe a particular case where they get exactly what they deserve, but I don't want to bail them out or anything like that. But I would like to more so hear from the people that are there. Certainly if they're against this, certainly even if they're, they tend to lean left or something like that. I think that's a voice that we need to hear. And I would love to see some of that stuff amplified as far, because right now we're just getting it from pundits and we get it for the people that are actually there.
My big thing too is no money to fix this from the federal government. This is all state and local money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I think too, I think Minneapolis was probably closer to the line of where we were really needing this sort of thing. I mean, at some point, there probably is a point where you need to step in and shut more of this down. But with Seattle at this point, it's more of a sign of things to come than an actual urgent crisis. But what it is, if I was in Seattle, I would think it was an urgent crisis. But nationwide, I don't know that it's really any role for us at this point. It should be something that we're thinking about though, because this stuff seems to keep going on. And the Minneapolis thing was legitimately really bad. I mean, we're to that point of you can't just destroy U.S. cities. We wouldn't let an invading force do it. We shouldn't let our own people do it either. There has to be some line there. But with Seattle, I mean, first of all, Raz is going to take control of it, and it'll be fine. But yeah, no, the federal government, I think it's not necessarily time for that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting though how eager the left was to send in the federal government to the Bundy situation, where they're in the middle of a friggin' mountain somewhere. Like if we all had 10 years to try to find it, we probably wouldn't be able to locate it. This is the middle of a city.
They walked into an empty Oregon Park building or wildlife building, and they said, "We're not leaving."
Yeah.
And we were told it was Civil War too.
Yeah,
was the
it was.
beginning.
It was.
They actually killed a man out of that. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Clive Bundy got shot out of that that whole entire ordeal. White privilege didn't certainly help him out there. Unfortunately, that man was shot dead.
That is true. Well, you got to believe that in Seattle, the kids over in CHAZ will eventually tire of getting hungry and return to their mother's basements. We've got more to come, including the Denver School Board unanimously voting to pull DPD officers out of schools when we come back. The Denver Public Schools Board of Education has voted unanimously to end its contract with the Denver Police Department that provides school resource officers to the district. So the DPD school resource officers will be phased out through June 2021. Now, the district is not, for full context, they're not just leaving the kids with no security. They say that they will rely on its own security team. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what kind of training they will have. I don't think that the school board actually knows what that looks like either. But they did decide, because of George Floyd's death, to go ahead and phase out the DPD officers out of their schools. They said George Floyd's death and every tragic death of Black people at the hands of law enforcement have brought to light how we as a district can respond and do more for our students of color. I believe the board has voted on this resolution with the best interests of students at heart. And there is absolutely nothing more important than all of our students feeling safe, cared for, and protected in our schools. It's odd because I feel like they should want to protect all colors of children, not just the black children.
I had no idea George Floyd was a middle school student. I thought he looks much older, you know. And it really is, it's funny because you see how emotion works in this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know when this started, but there was certainly a big argument after Columbine in the same state to put police officers into schools to protect everybody. And now we apparently don't like cops, so we're going to pull them all out.
Right.
I mean, look, I think private security can do a job like this pretty darn well. I don't think it necessarily has to be an officer, but I do think private security is a really good idea. As a guy who has a couple kids in school, that's really important to me. But this idea, this is what's so strange about this particular thing. I feel like we go through this pattern all the time, where something happens, and then there's these bizarre liberal requests of our culture, and then we go through this debate period as to, are we going to listen to them? Are we going to pull off every gun out of every movie? So, and we go through that. I don't know that I've actually seen a liberal request cops to be pulled off the air, or for live PD to be pulled off the air. There's the general
Paw Patrol is
Paw
the real
Patrol,
threat.
right? Exactly.
Don't even get me started, Tim. I already got fired up yesterday.
I know. They're
Chase didn't do anything, all right? He was a good boy.
He's a good boy.
He is a good boy.
He mauled a cat off screen.
Shut up, Tim.
But it's like that. There's that general theme of propaganda they're trying to make into a thing, where police are portrayed apparently too well to children, so they wind up with positive impressions of police officers and therefore have good interactions with them their entire lives. Sounds like a bad plan, but I understand that's something the left kind of generally complains about. But I mean, live PD, we talked about this yesterday, seems like the ultimate tool against police brutality, right? When they're on camera on national TV, the chances of them doing something terrible are really low. I mean, you'd almost want to launch new channels so you can put it on all the time.
Yeah.
That would
No
be
delay.
No delay.
Right.
And instead, they're going the opposite. Though I don't know that I've heard this. Did anyone say, hey, I want those damn Legos off of the shelves because there's police officers? I don't even think the left is asking for that, and these companies are giving in. It's beyond insane.
Because they're woke. You don't get it. You're not woke.
It's true. That's
That's
true.
your white privilege.
It is. It's showing again, isn't it?
Well, to Stu's point, and Eric, I'm sure you'll share your thoughts in a second, but the libertarian in me is like, okay, private security, this is great, but it's just frustrating that this is the reason that was used to push them to private security.
Well, here's the thing. When you read that statement and they're like, we're looking toward, protecting the, people of color and whatever in our schools, if you add in the line, so in that vein, we're removing all security from our schools. It just doesn't, why would you take cops away? And again, this is 4 bad cops out of how many thousands of cops in the country?
Hundreds of thousands, yeah.
I mean, and we're going to change everything and pull cops out of schools in a place that has a history of teenage shootings. I mean, there's just so much here that is so wrong and so nonsensical. Again, you get me into conspiracy theory land every time I'm here.
I don't think anyone has to push you far to get you into conspiracy theory land.
But every time I'm here, I'm like, there's got to be something much more nefarious here, because this just doesn't make any sense. And the fact that they're leading a bunch of sheeple with that, I use sheeple on air. I've never used that before on air. It's scary when you think about it.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, what it's doing, it's pointing out how the leftists for sure understand the importance of culture. This is why I say libertarians lose. This is why I say conservatives lose as well, because in a lot of cases they've utterly neglected culture and its approach. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't make sense, of course. We look at this, you're like, none of this makes sense, and why they would respond to that specific event with this doesn't make sense. Now, of course, I want the public schools gone. I would hope that anybody watching this looks at this and gets their child the hell up out of there. I think they're rotten top to bottom. I know there's probably some teachers out here that are going to tweet at me and tell me about myself. I understand it, but I think it's rotten from top to bottom, and I don't want them to exist. However, when it comes to private forms of security, be it private school or whatever, what have you, I am totally for that. I'm absolutely for it. But we can't talk about that without sort of dissecting the fact that this was like a irrational response because they responded the way they did. So you're completely right. A libertarian's like in you like, yeah, private security, that's awesome. But when you look at the events and what they're saying and you look at the event that they're responding to with this, it's like it doesn't really make sense. It's very reactionary. It's very nonsensical as far as what they're doing, among the other things, taking all of these things off of air. And it's a whole bunch of craziness that's coming from this, and it doesn't make any sense. So by all means, take them out, like whatever. And matter of fact, let's defund the public schools while we at it. If we're going to defund the police, let's defund the public schools, get rid of them. That's important. And I'm not saying that fraud defund that everybody else is talking about by taking money away from the public schools and then giving them to some bureaucrat or something like that. No, or a minister. Take them away. Let the people within those geographical areas keep their money and let them figure out how to, educate themselves. Actually, I would argue in the last couple of months, you're seeing some sort of creative ways that people have, because of this virus, have found to sort of educate stuff. Definitely with this interconnectivity, maybe the old way of doing things is very out of date in the first place. Yeah. So get rid of it. By all means, get rid of it, but go all the way. Let's keep going. But let's not sleep on the fact that was an irrational decision because, like you said, George Floyd wasn't an 8th grader or
in Denver.
No, I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. All right. Back in a minute. You have to wonder too, like, okay, so what happens when some security officer in Wisconsin does something wrong? White liberals in Hollywood want to make sure that everyone knows that with all of this that's going on with the riots and the protesting and the taking over Seattle, they take responsibility. Watch.
I take responsibility.
I take responsibility.
Deep thought.
I take
He goes for it.
responsibility.
He's the king of this
I
one.
take responsibility for every unchecked moment, for every time it was easier to ignore than to call it out for what it was.
Every not so funny joke.
He's good.
Every unfair
He's good, too.
stereotype.
Every blatant injustice, no matter how big or
Not
small.
her. She's reading.
Every time I remained
I
silent,
just like him as a person.
Every
love
time
his
I
hair. It's just
explained
like all messed
away
up.
police brutality or turned a
Which
blind
one is
eye.
that?
I know.
I take
That's a great, I have no idea
responsibility.
what that is.
Black people are being slaughtered in the streets,
Dallas.
killed in their own homes. These are our brothers and sisters, our friends, our families.
She doesn't have any black friends.
We are done watching them die.
Yeah, she's not even, okay,
We
all
are
right,
no
I
longer
can't.
bystanders.
I can't. That one was so blatantly like I am reading from a piece of paper underneath my camera to make sure that I get this line right. Jesse Pinkman,
I know.
you gotta know. I can't. But at least now we know they're taking, finally, you white people are taking responsibility for other people's actions.
It's interesting because I always thought these people in Hollywood were deep racists, and now they've admitted it. So they should be. Whatever they've done, it's got to be terrible to act like that. So I fully support them in unloading all of this this despair they've caused others. I'm also, because you guys probably have really smart things to say about this. I just I am fascinated by the fact that the most creative people in our society cannot figure out any other way to, after a
They don't have
tragedy,
the
to
writers.
do this stupid thing where they repeat
Exactly.
the
writers,
punchline.
man.
Exactly.
They're not
Are they the
creative.
most
They just
creative
read
people in
things.
society?
Yeah, I guess-
All they're doing is reading things.
I guess you're right.
Apparently.
I guess you're right. I have no argument against that because they're just terrible. And they read, it's that stupid same format, dramatic music, repeat the phrase 4 or 5 times. Like, I mean, we did a parody of this on Wonderful World of Stew in like the 2nd year of it. So it's got to be like 6 or 7, 8 years ago now. And it was already an annoying thing. Yeah. Like, why are they still doing this format? It drives me nuts.
Because celebrities are the most important people in our society. Actors, what would we do without actors? We'd all just be lost. I don't know. By the way, they lost me at I take responsibility for my not so funny jokes or whatever that was in there. No, I take no responsibility for all of my swings and misses on that stuff. I'm spitting. That's how excited I am about that. This is just, and it's the same clowns every time. It's the same clowns who sang Hillary's campaign theme at the DNC in 2016. Do you remember that video, that headache of a video?
No.
Google it. Fight song.
thank
They
you.
did a compilation.
Oh, I do remember that.
It's literally-
And the Imagine not too long ago.
Imagine.
I wonder if they just-
like, no one wants to hear you sing. You're not a singer. These were a bunch of people who were not singers. No, stop. You were off key.
Do you think they've had them, like, they like just film a bunch of these in one day, like a couple of years ago? These are all like stopped. And then somebody's like, all right, hey, we've got the race edit. Can we just run on that one today.
Oh, I want that to be so true. I love it. Oh my God. They're just like, maybe it's true. Like, imagine I take responsibility. These things don't mean anything. They can be on any topic.
They have a
I think this is true. I like your conspiracy theories. Bring them more to the table.
They have an Islamic call to prayer just in case as well, that they all like chant the Islamic call to prayer just in case we like turn into Sharia law. They're prepped.
Okay.
They got everything ready to go.
Eric.
Oh, it's so embarrassing, man. But on a serious note, this is why.
This is the second time you said on a serious note.
No, on a serious
I
note.
want a serious
no,
note.
but like, because you guys are goofy, I'll give you that. But no, for real. Like, this movement, because Black Lives Matter, whatever you want to call it, this is why it's centered mainly around two types of people: self-loathing, self-hating, or self-righteous white folk, and black folk being that more so want the acceptance of those. Like, these fools have given themselves power that they do not have. And it's not just them that's going around saying, and it's white folk that I talk about this, my band, guys we've been on the road with that, they done gotten these crappy deals. They get off the road and they working at Firehouse Subs or something like that. And then they come out and saying they superior to everybody basically by saying, I have to speak up. If I don't speak up, then this is going to continue as if they have some power. It's this power that they've illegitimately claimed. And then there was another video by a bunch of other black celebrities that were basically saying that they were hurt. One dude was crying these crocodile tears because he's like, people are posting about other things. My colleagues are posting about other things and not this. And I'm like, that's why I have an issue with this movement, because that's for losers, man. I'm never going to go do that. I will never, ever, ever, you'll never catch Eric July going around begging to be accepted, acknowledged, or validated by white people. I will never do that. That is for losers. And this is why I say amongst a lot of these movements is a leadership problem, because that is like, it's his literal beta. You know what I mean? Like, as in, like, you see yourself below them and you act as if your world can't move unless these white celebrities move it for you. And they're like, if I don't do something, then black folks just won't succeed and won't advance. Like, go screw yourself, man. Like, that's not, you don't have that sort of power. That's not what it is. You're just a guy that makes movies and stuff like that, and we all enjoy it and whatnot. Like, you don't got power like that just because whoever, I don't even know half their names, but.
Exactly. You didn't enjoy any of their movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, there was no.
I don't even know half their names, and they talking about this nonsense. So whatever, man.
All right, back in a minute.
And it's so like, it's so.
Eric?
Actually, if you think about it.
It's like,
I'm here for you.
it's so corny, man. Like, it's so.
All right, yesterday's poll: should President Trump step in and stop the madness in Democrat cities like Seattle, or let them destroy themselves? Let them go nuts. 61, almost 62% of you said, let them go nuts. Let them destroy themselves. 38% of you said that we should step in.
Not coincidentally, I think, like, if you look at conservative votes around the country in left-leaning areas, it's probably about 38% of conservatives are still voting for sensible things, but losing and getting this Democratic. So they're like, I know, you guys should step in, please step in, don't leave us here.
It's true. I wish that there was a way that we could like reach out to them and we could like extricate them from where they're at, just to try to save them. But
Osprey helicopters landing in town and everyone loads on and we take off.
Just drop the rope and they can just climb all the way up. I mean, it's not something I would do because I'm scared of heights, but I digress. All right, I didn't get a poll question for today, so I don't have a poll question to read to you.
Yeah, just make one up. What are you interested in? What do you want people's opinion on?
Is Sarah Gonzalez awesome? Yes or no?
I mean, we already know the answer to that. It's very obviously no. So, let us know what you think on the non-existent poll today. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. By the way, don't forget to make sure that you are subscribed to this on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. But also this guy, Stu Does America. All right, go there, subscribe on YouTube, also wherever you get your podcasts. I missed my haircut opportunity, but figured I'd